What is going on, Busy Bariatrics? I'm Rob, your favorite VSG man turned bariatric coach, here to help you stop white knuckling your way through chicken, broccoli, and dietary meal plans, ditch the burn boot camps that leave you sweaty but still stuck, and finally fix the habits, patterns, behaviors that got you here in the first place. Today, I've got one of my favorite and absolute rock star clients, Lindsay Czarra. I coached her to her wedding photo shoot weight, got her into a bikini for her honeymoon, and through every single bit of chaos you could imagine. She switched jobs, she had a full-blown move into an awesome house, she was planning her wedding, she had trips to Europe and New Orleans, and probably did more than I ever could, plus like a whole month in Florida. If you want to hear how to get it done with a very busy, very hectic schedule and still find ways to get results, this is going to be the episode for you. So, Lindsay, before we dive in, I am going to tell the listeners, because nobody listens to the end of these episodes, if you're interested in this episode, do me a favor. Screenshot the episode, tag me, tag Lindsay, share it with one person who keeps saying they're too busy, or someone who says, I got to lose that 15 pounds before their wedding, because we did both, and it's going to be an amazing talk. Lindsay, welcome to the show.
Thank you. This is so exciting. This is my podcast debut. I have
my
not
goodness.
yet
How
been
did I
on
get so
podcast
lucky?
ever. Hopefully I live up to the standard.
There literally is such a low standard for this podcast. Like, nobody listens, and it's really just like our clients and people who potentially want to join. And then I think like 4 people in like North Jersey who heckle me for my accent. So
I love it.
it's a safe space to start.
Perfect. Sounds great.
All right. So I gave the super long intro, but tell us all like why you joined Busy Bariatrics, how you found out about us, and like why me, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had bariatric surgery in February of 2024. And, I got to be about a year into that journey. It was wonderful. It was working. And then you just realize, as so many other bariatric patients do, that I just didn't know what my new normal looked like. I didn't know what my schedule looked like. And I didn't know, kind of how to build from there. So that's really what led me to kind of pursue different options. And I actually saw you on another podcast called The Former Fat Friend. And that is how I found you. And honestly, it was just kind of all of the things that I felt like I needed. I'm a structure girly, and it just really helped me kind of pull all the areas together in my life that I needed to after, going through something so life-changing.
Yeah, and I will say I was always impressed with your structure. I think from day one when we met to talk about working together, you were very clear, and it was a challenge in the best way possible, because there were clear goals and deadlines. Like, it's like, look, my wedding date is, remind us your wedding date again.
It was July the 12th of 2025. As of today, I am 1 month in.
See, what a great anniversary gift. Like, first month is podcast. That's essentially what the gift should be. Although I don't know if your trainer gets you a gift for that. But
it's already been a gift, Rob. Truly.
I am blushing on this. But in all seriousness, I want to say we started before Christmas, and it was a really clear runway, in the sense that I want to say like you came in late October, early November,
Yes.
give or take.
Yep.
And you were like, look, we have 7 months. I don't really know what my ideal goal is. But we kind of did, like, if you remember correctly, we kind of identified, like, what did we want to work on? What did we want to accomplish? So what were some of the goals we came up with early on?
Yeah, I think just not focusing on perfect, but focusing on progress was really something that I don't know we said specifically, but it's what we did.
Yeah.
And I think that was super helpful because, as somebody who's a structure person, as somebody who's goal oriented, I love to boil the ocean, or at least try to. So, we set up different tiers of like, hey, let's really think through, what's a good goal, what's reasonable, and what's our like nirvana goal, so that there's different shades of success, right? No matter what, you're going to be successful. It's just, balancing out what's important to you at the time, balancing priorities. Hey, like, I've had this thing go on in my life. Is another 5 pounds that important to me? Or do I look the way that I want to look? And am I haggling myself over something that really doesn't move the needle any? And I think what's cool about that as well, of course, without being prompted to say this, but I think what's cool is it pulled me out of something so structured, which I think is actually probably good for someone like me, to just be like, hey, you're doing well. You're accomplishing, you're achieving, and you're doing all the things that you need to do, and you're still making it happen. So that was great.
And I think that was definitely one of the best parts is we really got very clear of like, okay, what is the Nirvana goal? And for those who
Yes.
don't know, like it was like, if we could pick the most magical number that we think would be ridiculous, kind of insane, like almost floating on air looking over, what is it? And then we really went platinum and gold from there of like, okay, what's the number that will almost shock people? And
Yes.
then what is the number where like, if we got to this, we're good and we kind of managed it. And that's kind of tough to do because we hit a weird window where we started of, we were coming right into the holiday season.
Mhm.
What were some of the things we kind of navigated, if you remember, during the holidays to kind of make sure we stayed on point?
Lord almighty. I
I know it
think
was ages ago.
how did we get here? So I think the biggest part was focusing on basics that you could take with you, right?
Yes.
Because I was changing environments. I was going from, my apartment complex where I had gotten really comfortable with my gym, my routine, the times of day I was doing things, to going to my first, Thanksgiving and Christmas time, out of bariatric surgery rather. And then, part of that was going and spending my first Christmas with my parents, and they're in Florida. So completely different environment, and pros and cons to that. So it's focusing on like, how can you make this enjoyable and take it with you? So we focused a lot on, walking every day, movement every day, getting your water in, focusing on protein in your meals, and also living your dang life a little bit. Like, enjoy it. You're doing this in a different way. Of course, you don't want to shoot the moon with a wedding coming up. And you certainly don't want to break any of your progress, but like, you have to live your life. You have to enjoy your life too.
I think one of the coolest things of working with you is you were very good and we almost treated it almost, I'll go like full military level of we didn't have to win every battle, but we had a very clear plan of how we were going to win the war. And I almost remember because we'd meet bi-weekly. So whatever
Yes.
call was closest to the end of the month, I always loved the fact that I knew you would pop open your calendar and be like, here's everything that's coming up in the next month. How are we going to navigate that? And we would actually put it in True Coach with, okay, if we're traveling here, then we kind of want to hit this goal range weight here.
Yes.
And then we're going to take like a rest recovery week. And then we're going to come back and we're going to shoot for a little bit there.
Yeah.
How important was it for you to kind of incorporate like holidays, special occasions, and everything? And how did it kind of help your mental space while we were losing weight?
Yeah, I mean, I think most folks who are tuning into this podcast can relate to feeling like you don't have enough time. And that really wasn't the problem I had in this case. So I think making sure that I didn't end up running into a wall because I took the time for granted was super important. And that allowed me to kind of break it up into manageable pieces and parts. But I also think at the end of the day, like, I did have this wedding coming up. So that was a big milestone that I had to keep in mind and make sure that, even if I wasn't able to achieve like 90 to 100% compliance with what we set up, 80 might do for that week. 80 will still probably get you to that milestone, but also that structure allowed me to kind of better understand and see the flexibility I actually did have in my new body. Whereas, before surgery, before being on this plan, I would go and just eat very normal things in my mind. And then I'd be, 5 pounds up the next week and really be fighting another battle to get back to where I was and then progress in terms of losing weight. So, I think that was super important to reevaluate what was going on, what success looks like at each mark. And then again, bringing it back to incremental progress versus perfection at all times.
And I will say, like, the coolest part was the fact that watching you, like, mentally unlock that level of, like, I don't have to be perfect. I have to almost have, like, C's get degrees on some days and then, like, be in the A, B range. And you really did a good job of managing, of, like, look, I'm going out and doing this for like a party. So this is what my breakfast and lunch is going to look like. And then the
Yes.
next day's breakfast is really good. And that really did kind of help us navigate and go through because when you came to us, you were teetering around like if I can put numbers out, like about 205 is what we had you at your entry weight. And you were kind of in that initial phase of like, I'm never going to hit Wonderland. And I remember that conversation because I was like, well, like coming into the holidays and losing weight might not be the goal. It might be just maintain and work on the habits. But slowly and surely, we got like pound here, we got a pound there.
100%.
And then
Yeah, I am the queen of the nonlinear path. Like
yes.
it was definitely not it was slow and steady, but it wasn't slow and steady week over week. It was sometimes, you maintained or maybe you lost a pound in this 2 week period. And then I was down 3 because I'd built more muscle. And, it's just, that was the beauty of it, is kind of seeing that your path doesn't have to be so linear, and anybody who's goal oriented can I think take the advantage of that. I don't know, luxury. It's a little luxury for somebody who's very, like me.
And it is like very fun because it would kind of like, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see it did the exact opposite of what you want the stock market to do. Like it would just keep, like dropping down, but it would like peg up and down and up and down. And the best part was you would really just put the data in each week regardless. Like you're like,
Yes.
here's the weight, and it'd be like, okay. And then the next week would be like, hey, down 2 pounds, woohoo. But then it was back to work, and then here's the weight. How did that kind of evolve from where you were prior to bariatric surgery?
I think it just kind of put something in place that I just didn't have. Like I didn't know how to work around surgery no matter how much I researched. It's just there's a lot of information out there, and of course everybody thinks that they're right, and not everybody's been through this same journey. So you try to go back to the things that made sense to you before surgery, and they don't work, or they're not well suited for somebody who's a bariatric patient that needs to operate a little bit differently. So I really think it just allowed me to create a system for myself that was going to work, forever. And now I really feel so much freedom that I just didn't have before. And it's not to say that, I don't count or I don't focus on certain things at times, but I really think it's just given me the ability to live my life and know what I need to do in general so that I can go out and I can go to a concert or I can go to an event and, have fun, live my life.
And I think that was important because you live a very fun and rewarding life. Like I always joke, I would get tired almost doing your check-in because I'm like, oh my goodness, it's another weekend of traveling or partying. But it's the best thing that you should do. And I think that's the beauty of bariatric surgery is we really did make a plan that allowed you to enjoy all the foods that you love because you went to places like New Orleans, which is a major food capital.
For sure.
And it's like, yeah, we're having beignets, but at the same time, we're packing protein shakes. How did you find balance when you were on the road and traveling to like places like that in Paris? Because you're going to like some of the best food places in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good example. On that trip, I went on a donut tour and I partook in every single donut that they had. And I think, again,
was this New Orleans?
Yes, it was.
You're
yes.
Gonna have to tell me where because I'm going in October.
Oh my God, I'll tell you all the things. I also have a friend there. And she's great. And she's going to show you all the cool parts of New Orleans that you wouldn't think to go to. But yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things for me in kind of conquering any of these things that I did, I went to Paris for my own bachelorette. I went to New Orleans for my best friend's bachelorette. My best friend got married in February of this year. I got married in July, and probably a zillion other things. I think what you do.
The Commanders made their first NFC championship game in like 3 decades.
I know.
I just remember because you're from the DC area, and all I was like is, okay, this was a little bit of a tightrope for a coach because it's like I'm having a client who has to get ready for her wedding, and we're coming in at like October, November, which is like the prime. It's Halloween candy and this. And it's like, by the way, we also have a bachelorette party. I'm like, okay, and that's like also we really like the Commanders, and it's like as an Eagles fan, I will say when your team makes the playoffs though. It's you bring it up a notch where you might have a couple extra alcoholic beverages. You might have a couple extra chicken wings. I remember. Definitely. Do you remember we made like a chicken wing strategy?
We made a chicken wing plan. We did. And it was the best. And it was as simple as have X number of chicken wings, eat those first, have a couple extra pieces of celery and see how you feel.
Period. That's the patented Medio chicken wing plan for Busy Bariatrics.
Honestly, like, it's so simple. It could be like an Instagram post. It's so simple. But
I
that's
probably
it.
should make it by now, but yeah,
Yeah.
but that was the thing is I think a lot of the times when you look at other programs or diet culture, it's this idea of like you have to like wave kale over a bowl of steaming hot water and you have to like dunk your face in. And a lot of the times it was like, we're going to feed you more. It's going to be high protein, high fiber.
Definitely.
And then when you get to the party, just go ahead and have fun.
Exactly.
It was a cool way to see you manage and evolve because we hit all these events. We made sure that you were still having fun. And I remember most of the nutrition protocols were more simple than not. I don't think we tracked one holiday
No,
during.
no, I don't think we did. I don't think we did. And that is really nice too, because it gets you out of the, oh my God, this is tracking and structure hell, which
Yes.
it's possible even for people who like structure. Like it's burdensome. So I felt like I could go, and I knew that I had owned the beginning of my day and making sure I front loaded my protein and things like that. That's another big thing where you said protein shakes. I did bring a few of them. I would have half of one in my coffee in the morning, and that was easy to do. Maybe it's not a shake, maybe it's a bar or something like that. You have to find things that work for you, but getting that head start when you are out of your own environment and like, all this stuff is going on around you. I found that that was like probably the biggest thing I did throughout all of these things, whether it's holidays at my parents' house, and I have low control over a lot of what's happening, these events, what's coming across my plate. I think that was the biggest thing that I did.
And I think it was definitely one of the cooler parts is we're watching in real time of this was really the high hurdles to your wedding because
Yes.
you had multiple major events like we talked about. We got
Yes.
through all of that. We got through the Commanders' first playoff run. And then all of a sudden, like in our first 3 months, we were able to lose about 10 to 15 pounds and still be able to navigate all of that and still stay within range while starting to also like lift heavier in the gym. How did your workouts evolve from coming into Busy Bariatrics compared to what you did previously?
Well, I played basketball, at the AAU level and, high school varsity level for the first half of my life. When I got out of college, I went into CrossFit, which is, feats of strength every single workout. Got really, really strong. And then, between not working out and then going through the, surgery journey, I had lost a lot of my strength. So I'll say at the beginning, it was humbling. I was
Yes.
humbled, but in a good way, in a way that was manageable and in a way that didn't break my body down so much week over week that I couldn't still go and do the thing. That was the most important was, you are doing the thing and that is going to move the needle the most. So, I found that I got way strong in a very, very short amount of time. And I saw definitely how, my nutrition was feeding into that, but also that I don't have to track every calorie, every gram of everything necessarily for that to still work and it actually have the output that I might not have gotten pre surgery.
And I think that was the coolest part because I think a lot of people, when they go into certain programs, if it's a little bit more high cardio, which there's nothing wrong if that's what you enjoy, you'll lose weight quicker. But I think you fluctuate a little bit more because it's a little bit more water. You're not putting the muscle on to retain. But when you're strength training, it's very tough to sell to a client because you're really losing at this like slow drip, but your physique is starting to change over
Yes.
time with it. And we'll get to that in a little bit. But the main
Yeah.
part that I want to see now is we talk about recovery because you work a very important job and you managed both transitioning to a new job as well as moving and all of the things that planning a wed like seriously, I'm impressed. Like planning a wedding, having a social life, going away to Europe and coming back. When you look at all that, those are all high stress events. Even when they're good stress, it's your sleep is off, your nutrition can be kind of a juggle. How did we kind of manage stress through these periods?
Yeah. I mean, I think that making sure that I was putting enough effort into my sleep routine and into ingesting the right things to fully recover. So whether that's, my recharge or whether that's just making sure I'm getting back to fully getting my water in. Those were all very important. I also felt like through the process, the beauty of this program was, hey, you're really stressed. How do we make this work right now in a way that's not going to push you over the freaking cliff? And I think that's important. I don't think enough people do that, especially on this journey. They're so focused on wanting that outcome that they don't realize that taking a half beat to recover can help them get there faster, actually. And I'm somebody who fell into that, constantly pre-surgery, constantly in the beginning stages of surgery. And just to kind of see, go back to basics and rebaseline was really helpful to me in just maintaining my trajectory throughout the process.
And I think that was the coolest part is so many times people think like it has to be absolutely perfect. It has to be like, we're going to work out 7 days a week and we're going to dial our nutrition into a gram. What made it so capable for you, and this is something I hope everyone gets out of, when you show up into your one-on-one and you are vulnerable and you are honest and you are real, it makes it so much easier to coach because you would be the first one to say like, I have maybe 3 hours to get anything in my bariatric journey done. And knowing that, it was actually easier to coach you because I'm like, well, if you only have 3 hours, I'd rather see you get sleep and really dial in nutrition or pack meals and kind of go from there. And that was kind of the coolest part through this whole process is we continued to almost take less off your plate as we got closer to your wedding.
Oh my God, yeah.
And then like you were still getting really good results. So walk us through like what were some of the things you were planning for your wedding? How did we adjust? And
So
without
oh
filling a
God.
swear jar because my superintendent might listen to this. So we never know. I know.
So, oh my gosh. So I ended up adding so much to my plate at the end, on top of just moving houses and moving spaces, albeit not that far. I had to manage around that. I had to manage the fact that I decided to take on making a bunch of things for my wedding toward the end. I spur of the moment bought a Cricut, if anyone's familiar with that crafting tool, where I, made all my wedding signage and all that. And I think one of the things you encouraged me to do was like be where I needed to be and be in the moment rather than stressing myself out about getting everything done. And ultimately, it all got done anyway. I think that was a really human moment for me, especially when I was kind of at my wit's end of trying to perform and get everything done perfectly, or at least how I perceived perfect to be. Yeah, it was just, I think you're absolutely right. Me being super honest where I might not have been in the past was really like a big deal. I think bigger than people make it out to be. Like you as a coach didn't want to see me show up and be like, "Oh yeah, it's sunshine, puppies and rainbows and, everything is good. It's good. It's great."
Even though you have an adorable puppy, I will say that. So I know she's the best, but it was a really good opportunity because we had to adjust so much. And I say that in the best way possible. I think that's where coaching comes to place. I don't necessarily think a coach is that great if you have a client who does not work a job, can lift 5 days a week, has no stress, can sleep 8 hours. Like, well, you could YouTube how to handle most of that. Looking at just how you were managing everything was kind of an example of like, okay, well, if we need you to be present, we went over like just some basic functioning skills that help anywhere. We talked about like, okay, what can we automate of kind of put on repeat until we were done? What can we delegate to other people to manage? And then how could we almost just relegate of this is the bare minimum we're going to do to still get results. And we really did a great bare minimum going into the last stretch of your wedding because you would work so hard from the beginning point that we had kind of gotten to your goal weight maybe 2 months early, would you say? Like we hit like silver, platinum 2 months early. And that really was like the testament of lose like a pound here, lose a pound here, still go on your honeymoon, get your steps, do everything. Because if
Yeah.
you just did the work and said, this is where we need to adjust, we kind of got there early and it allowed us to kind of play around of, okay, we'll lean out a little bit more here.
Definitely. Definitely. And I feel like, when you said bare minimum, I think that's like a really good thing to kind of,
Yeah.
I don't know, gauge how well you're doing as well, because bare minimum still means you're doing it,
Oh, yeah.
right?
It
It's
means you're
different
showing
than
up.
it means you're showing up. There's a difference between that and between tanking out, doing the most when it comes to regressing in terms of what you're eating and all those things. Like bare minimum is still winning. It really is, especially if you're in a week where you feel like you can't do anything at all. If you're doing the bare minimum, which might be taking a 10-minute walk, getting some water, and having a protein bar in the morning, that's excellent. That's good. We're humans. Things are going to happen. And the bare minimum is sometimes okay.
And I think that was the best part is we didn't really come up with anything profound. It was those base level things that got us through with of, hey, if you're too slammed to eat a breakfast and a lunch, you'll survive if you just have a Profi and you get to 1 o'clock and then maybe you have like a sandwich. Where I think a lot of the times people think like, well, if I'm not meal prepping out these perfect meals and using this to the gram and getting everything, you're going to get results. For a lot of it was like, okay, if you're too busy to eat, let's kind of lean in as long as you're not hungry. Let's just push our meals back later. And that did allow for if you were going to dinner with your fiance, now husband, or if you were going out, it's like, okay, we have that calorie bank now later in the day when you can rest and recover. And I think
Exactly.
that was really cool was we started to really like tweak and tailor of, all right, we're going to be a little bit tighter, maybe Monday to Thursday, because we know we're going to like a nice dinner Friday night, and then Saturday is hanging out with friends. But it allowed us to really like go and almost surf your calendar to the best result.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cool. And again, I think the biggest thing that I got out of all of this, yes, I lost the weight I wanted to lose and frankly then some. But that flexibility is just something I never dreamed would be possible for me. Pre-surgery, post-surgery, I just did not believe there was a world where I didn't have to count everything, where I could sit, where I could have some freaking and not worry that my entire world was, crashing down on me and I'd have to make up for it tomorrow
And I
or
think that,
next.
yeah, and I think that's common for bariatric patients is like, look, we don't think that the single is going to cause all the weight to come back, but I do think there is a scary part in all of our minds of if I'm starting to graze on a handful of M&Ms here and there, am I going to start like eating every donut imaginable and
Sure.
doing everything else and going
Sure.
from there? And that's a scary part to be in, but I think we managed it well. I'm
Mhm.
looking at time though. I want to get into it because everyone is
Sure.
probably wondering. Let's talk wedding
Sure.
because at the end of the day, like I'm not gonna lie, I was a little nervous. I've done
Me
clients
too,
through the
Rob.
post. I know, and it's. I remember because we had like Lisa and Kylie were both on, and I was like, guys, I'm going to take this client because like we kind of have to make sure we land this properly for all this. But like we had real clear goals and everything. Walk us through like kind of how your wedding dress fitting.
So, I went and got my wedding dress in September of 2024.
Yep. So picked it before you picked a coach,
So I
which
picked it before I picked
can
a
I
coach.
just tell you, like, as a coach, terrifying because I remember at one point, like, I'm going through and like Lindsay will always know I write on my legal pads when I'm
Yes.
meeting because I have to kind of mind map it out. And I'm like, your date is here, your date is there, and you're like, and I already bought the dress. I'm like, oh God, I like we have to get like it's bought, like we kind of have to land this now.
Yes. There is no fail.
Yeah,
There
there
is
really
no
was.
try, only do. Exactly.
But it was fun because like
It
walk us
was.
through like you had this perfect dress that you looked
Yes.
stunning in all the pictures. But before
Thank
we
you.
got there, you chose the dress. What were your like hesitations, qualms, or anything else? Like knowing that
Yeah.
you had to like make this dress look perfect and it's the most special day of your life.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always scary to commit to something, I mean, frankly, that expensive and that beautiful, particularly coming from, I was only what 7 months into surgery at that
Mm-hmm.
point. It's terrifying. And, every woman I think is very much focused on how they look on their wedding day. I'm sure men are to some level too. That's not my experience, so I can't really talk on that, but
I will tell you from personal experience, I was more worried about how you looked on your wedding day than how I looked on my wedding day.
that's okay.
I almost,
So
I
there you
almost
go.
had like a countdown on my calendar. I'm like, oh, we're like, so you would see me in one-on-ones. I'm like, okay, we're about 60
I
days
know.
out, which means I have to tailor the macros here. We have to.
I know. I
I felt
know.
like me and your tailor should have had our numbers together because it's like we
Listen,
know what is tight and what is loose.
I know, especially from the jump, it was definitely kind of scary. I mean, when I bought the dress, it fit me pretty much like a glove, right? The size that I ordered. And, it was like, okay, there is no margin for error. Like, you either have to stay this or, you can lose, but there's no going back the other direction. So that happened. And then fast forward 5 months or so, and I had my first fitting, and they had to take that dress in. I mean, at least a size and a half from where I was, which it was the craziest experience ever, because purchasing the size that I purchased was wild to begin with, because that was, one or two sizes smaller than I had been, at the beginning of my surgery journey. So that was insane, incredible. And, that was well ahead of my actual wedding day. So, it ended up all working out perfectly. I think it was a big testament also to the changes in my body composition more than even my weight changing. Because I think at that
Before we
point,
get into that, can I just say
yeah,
I remember Lindsay is very good right now, but I still remember almost breathing into a paper bag because we had the date scheduled onto her coaching calendar of this is the first dress fitting. And I still remember the text you gave was like, Coach, had my first dress fitting, and it was like a dot dot dot, and all I'm doing is sitting there like, oh god, this is like I was like, let's because I knew the math was working, and from checking your progress pics, which you did a phenomenal job of giving week over week, I could see everywhere, and I could be like, okay, we need to pull and get a little bit more definition in the back. So we increased a couple reps on here. We said I needed to challenge the weight here. We wanted the tricep to kind of look good. The midsection, we kind of like had to cinch and adjust. So like I know you're doing the work, and I know it, but like I was like breathing into a paper bag, and then you showed these pictures, and the dress like personally looked baggy almost in the
it
first
was.
fitting.
And it was clipped in the back too. So like, I mean, it was
It's a
another
great problem
size
to
and
have.
a half smaller. It was wild. It was such a crazy experience because I mean, to be honest, and I'm sure we'll get into this, but like we were nearing single digit territory in clothing sizes in a wedding dress, which for, anyone who's ever bought a wedding dress knows that those wedding dresses are pretty much set up to make you feel terrible. To be honest, it's designer sizes, and those tend to be two sizes larger than your street size.
These are built for like Paris runway models.
Yes.
And if I had a nickel for every person who would tell me, like it's going to be tight, it's probably going to do this. So, like, to get to the first fitting and for it to have to be clipped in the back, I just remember thinking, like, okay, we're good. And then we kind of started to do a little bit more adjustments between wedding dress fitting 1 and 2.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think it was just a matter of, okay, we think the dress is gonna, be perfect. Even the seamstress was just like, we're gonna, you can't lose any more than 5 pounds. And I was like, never has anyone ever said that to me in my entire life. So
it,
that's
it
a
was a
win.
great, I have to tell you, it was a great moment in my coaching
It
career.
was
Is like
awesome.
whenever a client is told, like, my tailor says I can't lose more than 5 pounds, I'm like, steady as she goes, I got it. We work, but like that was kind of the cool part is we're like, let's build a little bit more muscle so that we stay within that 5 pound range, but we tighten and tone the parts that weren't on the dress. So we started to tailor your workouts to be more tricep and back heavy because the dress showed a lot of your back, which I always think makes for a beautiful dress, especially if you have an athletic build. And like your arms were open, so it's like, okay, we're going to adjust a little bit more. What happened between dress fitting 1 and 2, as you will
Well,
say?
yeah, I mean, I think the other part too, and this is, just Lindsay, what my, self-conscious area is my lower stomach. And I think it is for a lot of females. And I think what ended up happening is in tweaking that, we went from they've clipped this dress in and it's going to be form fitting and it's going to be perfect and all of that. It was still tight. It was still, around. It would just made me feel a certain type of way, and just a little bit of a fear, residual fear around that. In tailoring things, because I told you this, I told
Yes.
you that, and we worked on, where we want to see the most change. Fast forward to my final dress fitting, and none of the lines that I was worried about were there. I felt more confident and comfortable, like I had more room than I even did before, while it still was form fitting and tailored layered to me like a glove and comfortable. So that was, I mean, such a cool experience and just showed me the power of real incremental changes. Because it really wasn't anything materially different. It was, do a couple more reps here, do another set. But, I'm still doing 3 workouts a week, maybe 4. And,
and
everything else was
and
gravy.
some weeks too, based on what the schedule and the workload was. But it really did show, if you get very intentional, you challenge the weights heavily, and you kind of say what you want. Because I still remember going through and like we kind of nitpicked because we pulled up
Yeah,
your progress photo, we pulled up
totally.
the first wedding photo, and we were like, okay, where do we want to focus? And it's like, well, for midsection, like we have to get the nutrition dialed a little bit back, so we tightened up the macros on a couple little places to get that last bit to like cinch in. But we also did a little bit more of abductors and adductors to work the outside of the glute to help give a little bit more hourglass. But we really trained heavy a lot of your shoulder and back because that
Definitely.
actually brought the posture up. And if you look at Lindsay's progress photos, the cool thing is you could see, because there was a slit up the side, you could actually see from her posture, but also where her hamstrings had developed. You had more muscle definition in your leg from even dress fitting 1 to 2,
Oh, yeah.
because we were able to cinch off probably like another 7 pounds. I know we went over the
At
number
least. Yeah.
that they said, but the muscle came in properly, that it was a 7 pound swing, but the physique looked ridiculously different.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I felt how every bride wants to feel on their wedding day. I felt happy and confident, and I didn't feel like I was so hyper fixated on how I was carrying myself that day. I was able to live in the moment, and I got a sneak peek of my, pictures from my photographer, and I found that I wasn't picking myself apart. And side note, I think making the decision to not pick myself apart continuously and love myself and appreciate the progress that I've made and the beauty that I have, even when I could sit all day and say, I don't look like this Instagram model or whatever. I think that really just, I mean, the byproduct of all of this too is just me being able to live in the moment and enjoy my wedding thoroughly without worrying about, do I look a certain way? Do I look X way? I look the way I wanted to look, and I looked amazing and I looked good for myself. And that was the best part of it. And, my husband agreed.
I hope that I
Yes, he did. He did more than actually.
Well, and I think that was the best part, is we got to kind of see a little bit of a sample because you had your best friend's wedding,
Yes.
and we got to see you in a dress there, and we saw it, and you were a little critical of yourself, which
Oh, yeah.
I don't think is the worst thing, of at least saying like, here's where I want to improve. What I think is, I would say you were Instagram model worthy by your wedding day, because like
It
it
certainly
looked,
felt like it.
well, you looked like it. Every photo that you brought of the photo shoot, I was bringing to our team, like, look at that. Like, it was phenomenal. But it was also a testament of like, you had put in such good work for these last 7 months. You healed your relationship with food, and everything you just said, you were confident. It glowed off of you.
Thank
And the
you.
ways that I could say, more than anything, if you go back and look at Lindsay's pictures, and I'm sure she'll dump a whole bunch in for us as well,
For
her
sure.
posture is that of a woman who was proud, confident. Her shoulders were back. You could see it in every photo where, those standard wedding photos where they look over the shoulder. The definition would come in right on the back. And I was like, let's go.
It was great. And honestly, the cheering that you did for me and the rest of the team did for me, the notes that you sent just was a testament to the type of community here that I would wish for everyone, whether you're on a bariatric journey or not. Frankly, I know that, it's Busy Bariatrics, but that's what everyone should have, and that's what they should look for. Is somebody who's going to celebrate the big wins, of course, at the end, but the little wins. And hey, it's a win that you identified that you can't do all this week. Cool. Good job honoring yourself. Good job putting yourself first and your health first, rather than this all being about your aesthetic. That's super important.
And it was just so impressive. And then, like, the next part was you went on your honeymoon.
I did.
We,
Wild.
which was phenomenal, because did you think you would take as many photos as you did in a bikini for your honeymoon when you were planning to go?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Certainly not that I would have planned on sharing as a victory lap, if you will, with anyone. I think that was crazy. I bought a bunch of things and just noticed that, oh my gosh, like I am comfortable walking around in this. That's like a level of weight loss and comfort that I don't think I even had when I was at my lowest weight in high school. And I was, that's another win, but I'm
How
sure
do we crossed over that? Like all
I
through
know.
this process, we got you lower than your high school weight.
Literally, like literally, it was insane. And that was, peak basketball career for me.
Yeah,
I was, working out
working out
every
every day.
single day. Yeah, I was AAU shape and all that. And I felt like I was more defined and better defined for my wedding.
You
So
were.
that was cool. I didn't think that was possible. I think I'm capable of so much, but sometimes the mountain just seems so high, and it's, again, over time, if you just stick with it and take those little wins and honor yourself, it really does come out, and to the point where you're taking pictures of yourself in a two-piece bikini, and you're on your honeymoon and you're slinging coconut lemonades all day,
As you
and
should.
still having, protein in my meals and making sure that I am not feeling terrible. And I didn't. I felt great the whole time. I enjoyed myself and I came back and just recentered.
And I think it was cool because I think you even showed like there was not a weight gain from your wedding to like we made it very intentional. Like after we got through the final dress fitting, we kind of agreed there is no point of weighing because the hay is in the barn. And like that was the goal. Like we were like, we're not tracking calories on your wedding day. We wanted to make sure that like and your birthday was in there too, correct? Oh
Yes,
my
my
God.
birthday
Like
was
how
my
did
rehearsal dinner day. So I turned
yeah.
35, then got married the next day, then went on my honeymoon the following Monday. So yeah, I mean, like I have been using you as a dartboard for like the last 7 months. All of it planned. Well, not all of it planned, actually. That's a lie. I wish it was a little more intentional. There were some things that, kind of happened in the course of life during our, the last 7 months in our sessions. So some of it was planned, like the wedding, some of it was not planned, like, moving and changing jobs and all of those things. Super high stressed. I just happened to do it all in a month and a half.
Yeah.
Do
Not
not recommend.
not 90 days within a wedding, and I just remember every check-in I would literally sit there and be like, oh, I had to start checking because for people who don't know, we give a video recording on the weeks that we don't meet on one-to-one. So there are some clients that I had to learn that I have to read the check-in form before I record because my live reactions would literally be like, oh, we have another thing, this is great. I'm pretty sure my hairline went back and a little grayer through this. No, but here's what I'd say. You always never once did Lindsay ghost. And I think a lot of people when they feel like they either are putting too much on a coach or that they're not living up to the expectation of what they think their coach wants, and I want to emphasize what they think their coach wants. They tend to like avoid or shrug or disappear. And you showed up and was like, look, this is happening. It's out of my control, but we have to do it. We made a plan for every single part of that. We rocked your wedding phenomenally. Honeymoon was ridiculous. And I'm really happy because, like, kind of right now, we're reversing into this, like, okay, we don't really need to track. We just need to let you exist for a little bit. We need to find workouts that you love because I think this is the trickiest part. We've been so hell bent for 9 months on getting a goal. What has it been like to kind of adjust to the goal being not having a goal?
Well, I would take that a step further because I've been charging my whole life at a goal I never thought I'd meet. So I think adjusting to the fact that I'm there and that the approach is going to be different now and can be different. And that's okay. And that's amazing. It's scary though, because, I'm like, I could fail. I could go back to what I was before. And I think just having some faith in my ability to do the habitual things that I've learned to do over time and sustain those can be enough. And that's, I think, a big theme of this entire conversation, and a big theme of my journey is what is enough? Yes, there are times where you have to turn it on. It has to be, 100% compliant, depending on what you're working on. But I think sitting in those phases where, you can do what's enough, and that's good. and you're going to be able to sustain. Taking some of that fear out of the journey of sustainment is really nice. I did not think though that it would be such a mental hurdle once I reached my goal, because you think, oh my God, once I get there, I'm going to be happy, and I'm going to be a millionaire, and I'm going to, be the next, I don't know, Spider-Man. I don't know. But
I still think you could be Spider-Man.
I could. Maybe that's the next goal. I don't know.
You kind of
But
swing through everything. You're good at dodging. Like, I think, look, I'm not saying you can't be Spider-Man, is where I'll at least meet you halfway
thank
on.
you. But hey, like I can decide to do that now, but also not have to worry about failing. And I think that's the cool part of the phase that I'm in right now is I can really focus on what I need to do now for life to keep myself here and be able to focus on maybe a next set of goals that I have around my fitness. Like maybe I want to do, some sort of fitness competition. Maybe I want to be able to run a certain event. I can choose that now.
Yes.
Rather than it being about, hey, I need to lose weight because I don't think that I look good and I'm sad about that.
That's just such a beautiful place that we're gonna come close to finishing this part on, because like I couldn't be happier. From getting you to feeling like a glove in your dress all the way to now having a choice of what you want to do with your fitness and nutrition, I could not be happier of your progress and proud of all that you achieved.
Thank you.
And now we're going to play a little bit of our lightning round, which we're going to go through the busy method. And you're going to give me your, I know, we're going to see which one you have. So the B is for building habits. What's the best habit you built since joining?
Owning my morning. I was a morning girly to begin with, but knowing how to do that with, driving nutrition and habits, I think always just puts you off to a great start for the rest of the day.
Beautiful. The U is for understanding nutrition. Best lesson you've learned since joining?
Front load your protein.
Always good. S is for staying active. What's your favorite way to stay active? Now, granted, you're a newlywed. Keep it PG-13 because my superintendent listens.
Oh gosh, I wasn't even going to go there. Yeah, walk when you can, walk up and down your stairs, get out, see friends, do things that incorporates being active. Go play volleyball in your friend's pool if you can. Just
best way
go
to
hang
learn.
out with your kids. Yeah.
Love it. Y is for showing up for yourself. You've clearly shown it in the last 10 months, but what does it look like at this new stage?
Honor what's happening to you in that moment for the purpose of being able to sustain longer. So for me, I honored every point where things were hard and where I had limited mental bandwidth. I adjusted. I determined what was good enough, what truly was good enough. And that really helped with that.
That is just beautiful. And you're like, well, I spelt busy. You remember there's an exclamation point at the end for the healthy source of dopamine. What's your favorite healthy source of dopamine these days?
Ooh, working on my side hustle and putting actual energy into that. So I can't tell you much about it, but I am on an entrepreneurship journey as well that really helps me tap into my creative side the way that I've defined creativity. And so spending intentional time on that has been an awesome source of dopamine for sure.
And if you handle it in the same intensity and with the honesty and vulnerability that you did your process to get to your wedding date, I know you were going to do phenomenal, because one thing you don't do is give up or quit or shut down. So
thank you.
With that in mind, all right, Busy Bariatrics, if this episode hit, it's time to stop collecting inspiration and start collecting actions. Lindsay's proof that you don't need a perfect season of life to make progress. You just need a plan, accountability, and the guts to follow through, even when life is throwing champagne toasts and boarding passes at you. If this podcast helped you, the best way to support the show without spending a dime is to leave a 5-star rating and review. It helps more bariatric patients find this no BS guidance, and it tells the algorithm that we're done with the fluffy weight loss advice and we're ready for the real stuff. Plus, I read every single one because there's only like 20 of them on there. So remember, you're not uncoachable. You just haven't worked with our team yet. So keep getting busy. Thanks again, Lindsay.
Thank you. Super grateful to be here.
All right, everyone. Bye.